As House members prepare to send articles of impeachment to the Senate, CNN is reporting that more Republican senators might be in favor of convicting than they let on publicly. That would include Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell.
Very interesting. Joining us to discuss Democratic strategist Colin Rohero and national political reporter at The Hill, Jonathan Easley. Good to see you guys. Thanks for joining us.
Good to see you.
Hey, good to be.
Yeah, absolutely. Jonathan, let me start with you, man. So this is very interesting in terms of internecine GOP conflict. McConnell privately saying to many associates he wants to get rid of Trump with some finality, but other Republican senators making it known if Mitch McConnell does that, he will not be their majority or their minority leader of their party anymore. How do you think that this is all going to play out in the coming weeks?
Well, I mean, certainly the option is there if Republicans want to dive off the board here and completely excise Trump from the party and convict him in the Senate trial and prevent him from ever running for office again. I don't think that's going to happen. I guess you need 17 Republicans to get on board. I mean, Mitch McConnell is talking about how Trump provoked that mob, but I don't think he's committed necessarily to voting to convict Trump. And I think you're going to have a hard time pulling together enough Republicans to do that. And what we have right now is almost sort of akin to a hostage situation, really, with Trump sort of just hovering over the party from Mar-a-Lago, talking to his aides over the weekend, and they're issuing veiled threats about launching a third party, about pulling together primary challenges to Republicans that cross Trump and vote to convict. I mean, I don't know necessarily how serious some of those efforts are right now, but just the threat of it hanging out there is very serious. I mean, Republicans are going to pull primary challenges organically if they vote to cross Trump, whether he's running that initiative or not. So I don't think that they're going to get enough Republicans pulled together to convict, but you have a really nasty situation where you have Republicans like Romney and Murkowski who believe it's the right thing to do and want to see Trump thrown out of the party, others who are going to be making excuses because they're scared to vote, others who just believe that Trump shouldn't be convicted. So it's a brutal fight, and we'll see how it plays out.
Yeah, and Colin, to underscore what Jonathan is saying there, this is from Politico Playbook this morning. They're reporting that on a GOP conference call last week, Senator Kevin Cramer, a Republican from North Dakota, was among several senators who said he was flooded with calls from constituents demanding he acquit Trump, and was also hearing from some donors who wanted to see them defend Trump more. So, look, I think that there probably, if it was a secret ballot, are enough Republicans who want to be done with Trump. A lot of them have their own ambitions that are being blocked by him continuing to haunt the party from Mar-a-Lago, as Jonathan put it. But ultimately, they don't want to buck the base and face those consequences.
Yeah, I agree with what you're saying there. I agree with what Jonathan said. I think there is some measure of miscalculation here. Donald Trump's entire success was basically due to the fact that he understands power. He got up there and he lied and he shredded the Constitution while these guys basically sat by because they didn't know how to deal with him. It's a Republican Party right now that's kind of battling between those who have the courage to stand up and some measure of principle, and then those who don't. Guys like Ted Cruz who will let Donald Trump insult their wife on stage and not do anything about it. That's the conflict here. But what they're missing is that those voters and that group of people responded to Donald Trump's strength and power. And they need to respond in kind with their own. They need to say, you went too far, and this is done for you. And if they do that, Donald Trump's going to move on to the next thing. Without the ability to run again or have that as a threat, they've completely eradicated his leverage. And there's nothing sadder in the world than a politician who's gone and can't be reelected again, trying to continually assert their power. And that's all Donald Trump will be. And in a year from now, if they say you're done, Donald Trump really will be. If they don't, and they continue to play footsie with them and be as cowardly as they have been in the past, he's going to continue to dominate them because they've let him do it. We need some leaders up there on the Democratic Party and the Republican Party who've actually been in a fist fight in life before, the kind who know that sometimes you just got to punch the bully in the mouth, not the ones who, are from elite country club, governing styles.
So this is the interesting thing, though, Jonathan, which is that Colin says that they won't pay a price in the future. I actually think they would pay a tremendous price. I mean, Trump has a 68 to 75% approval rating amongst the GOP base. I think that any Republican who votes to impeach or convict Trump is dead in a primary, completely dead. You can ask Liz Cheney, who's just censored by her own Republican Party. Mitch McConnell might have the luxury of doing so because he's old and he probably is not going to run again for the U.S. Senate. But what about the rest of them? Some of them want to be president. And I'm just saying, empirically on the political merits, it seems like even if they did impeach Trump, he could still use, I mean, he doesn't have Twitter anymore, but he could try and primary them. As we saw in Arizona, it was successful in getting Kelly Ward over the edge there. So I feel like he could still be quite a bit of a thorn in their side, regardless of what happens here.
I mean, 100%. And it's sort of this strange bind that Republicans find themselves in right now is they need Trump to turn out his base of supporters in future elections just to be competitive. At the same time, too, though, Trump turns out a lot of Democrats as well. I mean, we saw that in the 2020 election. So, I mean, it's a real bind, and especially for someone like McConnell right now, who is responsible for getting, electing enough Republican senators to have a majority. I mean, he knows that he needs Trump's base. At the same time, we're seeing corporate donations dry up to some of these Republicans that were challenging the outcome of the election. I mean, that's a serious thing. I think McConnell is worried that could be fatal to Republican chances in 2022 and beyond. So, I mean, yeah, it just seems like an impossible bind right now between Trump, who we know likes to behave punitively. If you cross him, he wants to launch a primary challenge against you, and needing Trump's base of support, but then also, in the eyes of some Republicans, doing the right thing and moving on from him.
Yeah.
Colin, what do you think that McConnell's calculus is here? Because on the one hand, he's sort of like letting it be known that he is probably, he's at least open to voting to convict Trump, that he thinks it would be better for the Republican Party to ban him from running for office again and be done with him. But he's also not whipping votes, at least in terms of the reporting, doesn't seem to be whipping votes to try to get Republican senators to go along to convict. He's saying things like this is a vote of conscience, so leaving the door open to them, but not effective, like actually trying to create that outcome. What do you think his calculus is?
Yeah, well, first of all, I think the calculus of the Trump base didn't work out too well in Georgia. Both of those people marched in lockstep with Trump, and they got beat, both senators. So I don't think that that's something that we necessarily continually have to be afraid of. But to your question, I think his calculus is he doesn't want to be a man on an island. I think it's, to be the first guy jumping off the boat, he's going to be the one that's going to get all the arrows. And he's not looking to be the one that gets hit with the arrows. He's looking to be, the guy in line who gets some of the spoils once they get rid of Donald Trump. And I do think, I don't disagree that it's a vote of conscience here. It really is. And I think he's giving people the pass to make that decision instead of just killing it outright.
Yeah, well,
he could kill it outright if he wanted to, but he's not.
You're right. That's certainly true. We'll see how it works out. All right, guys, we're going to be back with more Team Rising right after this.